Hey, it's Mike from Apollo, and we are back. And we're back with Fictitious AI. And we're now going to have a look not at the unit economics of the business and the business model that was in the previous video. We're looking at Fictitious AI from a people perspective, from team. What kind of people do we need? What is our capacity? Are they performing? And the reason that these are all so important as questions to answer is that often people will paint a picture on the outside. Hey, we're hiring. Hey, we're raising capital. But the question is, are we really performing and executing consistently and sustainably? Because the thesis is that if you do those things, then you'll be able to grow, you'll be able to scale in a very solid way. Without those things, it'll be up and down, it'll be chaos, and, well, you may have experienced it yourself. Okay, I have lots of notes I want to take you through. But first, let's get familiar with Fictitious AI. Two great founders, Elena and Marcus, hiring lots of folks. They've got values, they're committed to transparency, objectivity, and privacy. Sounds pretty good. But let's now look at an evaluation that I've done. One of three, and we're going to go through each of them. And this is around work design. Said differently, like who's doing what, and maybe even bigger still, who owns it. Now, Fictitious AI is not ready to scale. Fictitious AI, they have a lot of challenges. And what I want to do is go behind the scenes and point out where the real problems lay. And hopefully you can learn about those and how to apply these questions and this thinking inside your team so you can perform better. So the key foundation here is that if you do have a good work design, clarity on roles and decisions, if you have that, this is the first step in building a really solid team, a really coherent, cohesive team. So what you'll see here is there's kind of some role clarity. There's a little bit of strategic coverage, but you'll see some big flags on decision ownership and founder dependency risk. Now, these are huge common factors in early stage companies. What you will tend to find is that one or two founders have a highly consolidated role. They have most of the decision-making capacity, and in fact, to release a new version of your product or to close a deal often may be very hands-on with those founders. And this causes a lot of issues. I think the big thing that I would say is at the moment, this company really has an idea. It doesn't really have a business. And inside of that, until there are these themes of clarity, decentralization, and having the right spread on capacity, it's really going to have challenges growing. So if you see this, the real question here is, can this grow? Can this perform sustainably and repeatedly? And the answer is absolutely no, because there's not clarity on roles. Strategic coverage is okay, but the decision ownership and huge dependency at the founder level really holds them back. So this is often a big challenge because this is how you got started, but it's time for a new phase, but people can be reluctant to go into that. So you want to actually do this kind of exercise here. You want to map the different key roles and then actually objectively measure the coverage you have. Something that you will see constantly in early stage companies is the engineering, the product, and top line growth. It's kind of got some coverage there, but it's commercial expansion and metrics, operating systems are often the key things that don't get done in those early stages. So you might say seed. I'd be really worried if it was a Series A experiencing these kind of problems. But what you'll see here is, like, if you lack company level metrics, if you don't have prioritization and cadence, these are the kind of key things that tell you you're missing an operating owner. Over here, what's interesting about this is, pricing, monetization, maybe going upstream into the enterprise. All of those things require more than just a founder, CEO driving the commercial growth of the business. So these are some of the key things where you'll see the patterns. It'd be very interesting to know, how does this map to your team? It's quite natural to have these gaps, but you've got to manage them. You've got to get after them, because what this will mean is that if you don't, you'll be experiencing what I call the wobbles. Like, execution is a bit of a hit or miss affair, but also as a result of that, some of your key metrics, some of your traction, some of your momentum won't look so good. And if that doesn't look good, when you go to raise capital from venture capital firms, you're going to have some problems there too. But that's all downstream from this. This is the root cause, and this is what you need to go fix. The other thing you need to do is you need to go map your key decisions, assign who's accountable for them, and you'll see some mismatches there. But here's the key thing. The risk that you carry in those early stages when you look at who owns what is founder dependency. And the reason is that is limited to the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week that individual has. And you're going to see that there's a lot of knock-ons that come from this, little sort of downstream effects of this. So this is the broadest, strongest pattern that you're going to see around talent in an early stage company. Okay, let's go to the second evaluation that we've got here. We're shifting a little bit. Previously, we were looking at who owns it. Now we're going to move to, do we have a full team on the field? Now, what you will start to see is some issues, and I'm going to show where they come from. So this will be great for the highly technical startups. You might see getting new releases is actually blocked. So publishing a new release, or your commercial deals are stalled. Or maybe your pricing changes and upgrades or new sets of pricing for enterprise are frozen. Or some of that important long-term work in making an architectural change on the system, your inability to do that might not create like a panic right now, but it will certainly be a massive issue down the track. So what is the problem that is causing those issues? Well, it's going to be a map like this. So now we're moving into, it's a bit like looking at a team sheet for a sports team. Do we have attackers, defenders, etc.? And what you'll see in the case of Fictitious AI, they're really lacking here, because they have this critical thing with sales, but they also have the same person doing product. And so you can see this is why we're going to have some real challenges. Now, you might have a slightly different pattern, but what this is really showing to you are all these key roles that you need, and you have to ask, do you have coverage? This isn't so bad to actually only have one in critical, but you might actually have more than that. But what you will see, even just with this one, is you'll have a couple of things happening here. That the sales throughput, it's capped by the CEO rather than market demand. So you could be growing more and better, but the CEO just doesn't have time. And release velocity could be better as well, which could in fact help growth, could help sales. But the CTO is so busy across infrastructure, releases, unit testing, all of the different variables there. So you will invariably find some version of this where there's a duo, which, for example, in this case with Fictitious AI, the CEO owns product and enterprise sales and handles all the escalations. Everyone runs to the CEO, plus the growth strategy. This is so many hats to wear. And the CTO has the architecture, releases, technical escalations. How about security? So what you see here is they're just hanging on for dear life in terms of their coverage. That's why their score is a little better here. But it is really, really fragile. Like, very conditional here, this verdict. A lot of bottlenecks, potential burnout. That's another big thing. And obviously, if you do want to go to that next stage, exponentially increase your number of customers, go into new markets, you just wouldn't be able to do so. And this isn't such a bad one. I've seen worse. So this is really something to keep in mind. You've asked the question, who owns it? Now, do we have a full team on the field? And sometimes there are tough decisions. Maybe you can't go over to the enterprise market just now because you just don't have the capacity. You don't have the roles covered. Critical decision. You really want to improve the quality, avoid burnout. This is all part of looking at the dynamics of the team. So we've got one more evaluation to look at. So now what we're going to shift to is some high performance themes, characteristics, what tends to happen in a high performing team. And I think these two things here, operating rhythm and executing under pressure, these are huge indicators of a high performing team. They're constantly shipping. So for example, I simply look in the App Store and look at how regular bugs are being updated in an app, and that's a great proxy. So if you're in the iOS store, just have a look. If someone is pushing a new release like every 2 to 3 weeks, that'll tell you that you have a high-performing team. That'll tell you they've got an operating and they can operate under pressure. Now, in the case of Fictitious AI, here are some key things they don't have. They cannot stick to a fixed sprint and planning schedule. This is so important. You know, if I had to, if we had a very small number of user stories getting updated in a sprint, I would rather stick to the rhythm rather than delay to get more features in. The reason being is you build up this institutional muscle memory, this understanding, this coherence from pushing a new release. These are the things that you need to build up. And this is like a world-class athlete needs to do a lot of reps in the gym. The other thing here is commitment tracking, structured reviews, and the famous retrospective. How did we do? And how about this question? What did we learn? That has to be baked into your operating rhythm. So you'll often see that underperforming companies just don't have this kind of thing happening. And the team might know what's going on, but synchronize, baby, on how we're dealing with it. So that's where those decision bottlenecks that we saw in the previous evaluations, we saw those really hurting. So what do we have? What do we have when a company is working like this? Well, it's going to have some really, this is something you might see. Getting things done, executing, requires a mad panic, ring the bell, raise the flag, whatever you want to call it, escalations, and it's invariably to the one or two founders. So if you are nodding your head and your company is behaving like this is a clear opportunity for you to go and solve it. So you might have a statement like this: execution succeeds only when urgency triggers direct founder coordination. Without this external escalation, priorities fragment and execution coherence weaken significantly. Now, what we're talking about there is the founder says, everybody in the meeting room, we've got a major problem. We're going to miss a deadline. We have an error. We have a bug. If it takes the founders to do that, this is a totally unhealthy, unscalable, unrepeatable way of working. What we're really starting to point to is the shift from an early, perhaps from a seed to a Series A, is the decentralization of decision making and responsibility, so the business can continue to ship code even when the founders aren't in the office. This is really key. You want to have a single source of truth. This is another big thing. Having a place where those sprints, those decisions, the tracking is all happening. There's got to be essentially a system that supports all of the people running around doing the work here. And what you'll see here, of course, if you're missing a number of those things, how can you really have great goal alignment? And look, you might execute a bit under pressure, but burning out everyone in the process. So these are evaluations that you can actually do. So this is really looking at alignment and performance. The second one is really looking at, do we have the right players on the field? And this first one that we went to, this is like, do we have clarity on what position are they playing? Are they an attacker or a defender? Now, all of these assessments, these scorecards, were built using this product called PeopleBooks. This is a free product that I've built. And look, you'll see here, there's the work design. Can our execution model actually scale beyond the founder? I have to say, this founder dependency, as much as we love founders, I'm a founder, They cannot be all about the founder. If it takes the founder to get a sale every time, ship code every time, then it's just not scalable. It's not really a business. It's a group of people coordinating around a founder. The second thing, the gaps and the realities, it's like getting a full team on the field. Does our current team realistically match our execution demands? Maybe you just have to pull back on being so overly ambitious with the team because you're breaking them all the time. Or maybe you need to hire up. And lastly, are our teams aligned and able to execute together consistently? And that's where you see great product teams working with tech teams or sales teams working with marketing teams. And you can run an assessment of where you're at now. And in the case of every one of these 3 evaluators, there are 5 operators that will help you drill down into the specific thing that's holding you back. So in this case, the escalations, setting priorities, setting an operating rhythm, and many other things that will contribute to your alignment and performance. So this is really designed to be a tool that you can use as part of a startup, or maybe you're the founder yourself and you want to be able to scale. You want system repeatability. Maybe you just want to get out of being stuck in 5th gear all the time because you're exhausted. You want a sustainable way of working, a sustainable way for the business to grow. Well, head over to b2bpeoplebooks.com. Link is in the description, in the notes. Check it out. Run your evaluators. Tell me how you go. I'm really curious to see what you're working on so that you can grow scalable and repeatable, and most importantly, so your team can execute consistently. All right, that's a wrap. I'll see you next time.